Welcome back to Charming Data, everybody. Today we're going to learn how to make our web app or our dashboard look a lot more professional. We're going to use three Dash Bootstrap components to do that. The first Bootstrap component is the Popover. Then we're going to look into the modal to see how to create a modal. And then we're going to see how to create an alert. So if a user has a few drop-downs chosen, but then they empty the drop-down, an alert pops up. So these three Bootstrap components have similar purposes, but not exactly the same. The popover is generally used with information that is not the most important information to have on the web page, or information that you don't always want present on the web page. So this, for example, is information about Berlin. So the user maybe wants to see it once and that's really it. So you can put it within a popover instead of having it always on the top part of the page or the left part of the page. A modal is something that you typically see, you maybe are not aware of it or haven't noticed, but when you fill out your Visa or information, your credit card information or your PayPal information, when you're purchasing something on the web, usually you'll see a modal pop up where you can put your information in there, Visa, or if you want to add like comments to a different forum, usually it's through a modal. And the alert is something that I'm sure you're aware of, pops up to users or for users whenever the owner of the app wants to make something very clear to the user, showing them they probably did something wrong or something has to be fixed. It's usually in the color red, and usually the user will have to click X to close the alert. Unlike the modal, where if you can click anywhere to close the modal. Okay, so we're going to look into these three Dash Bootstrap components using Dash Bootstrap. We're going to use this data also in the video, so just open the links under the video, the description, and you'll see all the links you need in order to follow along, especially the code. So we're going to use this data. We're going to focus on the graffiti incidents in different neighborhoods inside different districts in Berlin from 2012 to 2019. And I think that's it. So make sure to open the code so we can follow along. It's more, there's 159 lines of code, so it's more than most tutorials, but we're going to walk through this together. So I'm going to make sure that you understand every single line of this code. All right. So the first thing you want to do, you want to import these libraries because you have to use these libraries in order to create this dashboard. If you don't have all of them, all you have to do is open your terminal and just do pip install dash for the first library and pip install pandas, and the last one would be pip install bootstrap components, and you will be ready to go. It takes about 5 minutes and you can join me in this tutorial. So what we're going to do, we have our CSV document in the same folder as this code. You see this code is inside this folder, Bootstrap Modal, and we have our Berlin crimes in here. So we're just going to pull it in here into Pandas data frame. We're going to call it DF. Then we're going to start our app, and our app we're going to use the Bootstrap theme. If you want to use a different theme, just click on this link. It'll open this up, and you can use all of these different themes. I'm using the default Bootstrap, but you can put Cerulean or Cosmo or anything you want inside of here, and it will give you a different theme, a nice different color and different shapes. Just make sure that it's in capital letters. All right. So do me a favor, close the modal here so it doesn't take too much space, and you close the alert because we're not going to look at that now, it will be easier. And let's just close the image card, and let's just keep the graph card open. Just the graph card we're going to use. I'm going to go at the bottom here, and this is the meat of the app. This is the layout. So here I'm just saying use the row component, DBC row. We learned all about this 2 videos ago. You can just click on the video above to learn all about the layout of a Dash Bootstrap if you need to see more about it. But we're just taking one row because everything is going to be in one row. And inside the children of the row, see right here, we're going to have 2 Bootstrap column components. The first column component is going to be an image card, which is going to be 3 columns wide, and then the other one is going to be the graph card, which is going to be 8 columns wide. That is why you see this right here. This is the image card, about 3 columns wide, and this is about 8 columns wide. Okay, and then as you know by now, there are 12 columns on a page, no matter how big the page is. This big or this big, there's 12 columns. 3 plus 8 is 11, so the last column is going to be justify around, is going to be divided up into different spaces between the cards. All right, so we have the layout and we have both of our cards, but we don't have anything in there yet. So let's see how we put something in there. The first card we're going to look at is the graph card, right? How do we create the graph card? Let's go up here, graph card, there we go. So the first thing you want to do is DBC card. This was also in the previous tutorial, but this is you don't have to see it. You can learn it from here. DBC card is the Dash Bootstrap card component. You can also read more about it right here in the link below the video. Card. You see components, Dash Bootstrap card. So if you click on this, you'll read all about the card component. But in essence, what it has children, and inside the children, we're going to have the card body, all right? And in the card body, again, we're going to have inside the children of the card body, we're going to have an HTML H4. It's a Dash HTML component. We're going to have the title. We're going to put a certain class to it from the Bootstrap class, and we're going to align it in the middle. So as you can see, here is the title, Graffiti in Berlin 2012, like we have right here, Graffiti in Berlin 2012, which is right in the middle of this graph card, right here. Then we're going to have under that, we're going to have a DBC button. It's going to say about Berlin, and this is the ID that we're going to tie the button to the popover later in the callback. And then under the button, we're going to have popover, as you can see here, the popover that exists on the page, but right now it's hidden because it is open is false. When is open is true, it's going to suddenly appear like this. But right now it's hidden. So what is it built out of? DBC popover, you can also read all about it right here. DBC popover is the popover component. You go there and you read all about the popover. So the DBC popover, or you're going to have two sections. You're going to have the DBC popover head, the head section, all about Berlin, which you can see right here. When you click on it, you see all about Berlin. And it's going to have the main body section where I just copy pasted Wikipedia content, the DBC popover body. All right, and it's just a string. We're going to close the children, and then we're going to give it an ID. The ID of the popover is going to be popover. Very creative of my part. And then the target is what ties it to the button. So whatever the ID of the button is, make sure that that same ID is the target string right here. Okay, they have to be exactly the same string. And then we're going to say placement in the bottom, because if we open it, we're going to say that it opens in the bottom. If you want to, you can open it to the right, to the left, top, and I think there's start and end. Just go over the popover and you'll see all the different options. Okay, and right under the popover, we have an empty graph. You see there's a graph component, but it's an empty figure. There's nothing inside of it. Right now there is because we connected it, but with a callback. Okay, so how are we connecting the button to the popover? This is the most important part of the popover because you need to connect it. If you don't connect it, nothing happens. This won't open if you don't connect it with the callback. The callback decorator is right down here under the layout. So this is the popover callback that we just created. And what we're doing here is we're taking an input. We're taking the popover button target. This is a component ID. There's a component ID. Let's see what this belongs to. This belongs to popover target. So this is the component ID. Target is not an ID, so it's not referring to this. It's referring to the ID. It's a popover target component that belongs to the button. So we're going to take the end clicks of the button, which right now is 0 or none, and based on the end clicks and some more information down here, we're going to return in this function. Whatever we're going to return in this function is going to change the is open of the popover ID. What is this? The popover ID. Let's see what was the popover. Popover ID refers to the popover. Okay, and it's going to change, the component is going to change the is open parameter. And the is open parameter is either false or true. So maybe it's a bit confusing right now, But let's look into the function and see how that works. This is a callback function. So we're going to say define callback function as toggle popover. You can call it whatever you want. We're going to take the n because you have to take the first component is this one, and then we're going to take the second component, the state. We're going to take is open. State just means the current state of in this case the popover, which is false. Remember, the current state is false. So we're going to take the current state and we're going to take the n clicks and we're going to do something with it. So let's see what we do. Remember, state has to be inside a list, and also input has to be inside of a list. Output is only inside of a list if you have multiple outputs. All right, so we're going to say if button is clicked, then return not is open, meaning return the opposite of what it is right now. So right now we know that is open right now is false because that's how we set it up, false. So the opposite of false is true. So if we click on button, if n is true, then is open, then not is open, it means that is open equals true. And then if we click on n again, right, because now I'm doing another callback, if I click on n the second time, it's going to return now not is open. So the opposite is true, which is false. So that should be closed. All right, and we're doing this through the state. We're looking at the state of the is open, and the state is open starts with false because again we put this here as false. All right, so if I load the page, one last example, I'll load it right now. The current state right now is false because it's not open. If I click on n, then it becomes the opposite of false. It becomes true, and if I click on it again, it becomes false again because the opposite of true is false. And then if I don't click on anything, then it returns the current state, which is false, because that's what we did when we loaded the page. Okay, so we learned all about the popover. Remember the placement. I don't remember if I told you about the placement. Placement, again, is where you want the popover to appear. If you want it to appear to the right, all you have to do is change placement to the right. Maybe you should probably change this as well. Target, popover, right target, popover, right target, and make sure to change the IDs here. Popover, right target, and it will appear to the right of the button instead of on the bottom. You can do left and you can do top as well. All right, so we went over the first callback, and we went over the graph card. We went over the graph. So let's close the graph card, and now let's open the image card. Okay, so we did remember the layout. We had an image card and a graph card. We did the graph card, and now we're going to focus on everything that's inside this card. All right, so the image card, we have, again, a DBC card. We're going to open the children, and we're going to have a body. Here we're not going to have a header. Here we're just going to have a DBC card body. Inside the body, we're going to have the title. We're going to give it a class name card title. This just affects like the position of the space between the elements. So as you can see here, the lovely city of Berlin is the title right here. And then we have card image. This is another component in Bootstrap, and the card image takes it from the assets. It takes the Berlin Wall JPG from the assets folder. The assets folder is the folder that I have. Remember, the Bootstrap model, the code you're looking at right now, is inside this folder. In there, you have another folder called assets. Make sure you spell it correctly. And in there, we have the Berlin Wall JPG. So you have to have your image inside the assets for this to read it and to show up right here, this image. And the title of the image is Graffiti by Gabriel Heimler. And this is the title of the image that will show up as you hover over the image. And then we're going to have an 8.6, choose Berlin district. This is going to be the card text right under here, right? You don't have to put a class name. It just makes it look a little bit better. Under this, we're going to have an HTML div with the ID alert. We're going to use that to connect it in the callback. But the children is going to be empty. There's nothing in there right now, meaning the div is invisible. There's nothing in there right now. You see? If we go in here, you'll see the choose Berlin district and then the dropdown because there's nothing in the div. And then we have the dropdown. This is a DCC. Whenever you see DCC, is Dash Core Components. This is the Dash Core Component. It's not Dash Bootstrap. It's not DBC. So DCC core components and HTML components you can find right here in the Dash main website. you'll see core components, and you'll see HTML components. You saw we used H4 down below here, and we're also going to use right now the Dash core components. We're going to use the dropdown. Right? You click the dropdown, you learn all about the dropdown and all the key arguments that you have inside the dropdown. Dash Bootstrap also has a drop-down menu, but I find that the regular Dash core components has more keyword arguments, and I'm just used to it more, and so I have more experience with the core component drop-down in Dash. I'm going to use the Dash one. So the dropdown, we're going to give it an ID. Remember the ID we use in the callback to tie everything together. And we're going to go into the districts, the neighborhoods inside the districts inside of Berlin, and we're just going to create the options. We're going to create the options inside the dropdown. Every option is a dictionary of label and value. So that's why if you click on options, you'll see all these districts that are an option. And then the default value is going to be Lichtenberg, Pankow, and Spandau. Sorry, Germans, for destroying the names. But if I refresh the web page, we have these three that pop up by default. And then it's going to be multi-true. We're going to choose multiple options, going to allow the user to choose multiple options. And the text color of the dropdown is going to be black. So now we need to tie the dropdown to the graph, right? We need to do it so if I choose a different Mitte, then a different line of Mitte will come here in the line chart. And we do that with the dropdown right here. This dropdown. We also tie the alert. We're also going to put the alert in here, right? Let's see what the alert is. The alert is right here is an empty div, but it's going to pull this alert right here. Alert is a DBC component. It's a Dash Bootstrap component. Again, you can just find it here. Click on this, and you can read all about the alert, the different colors, and the different links you can put in, and everything you can do with it. But let's stick to the basics. We have the text that the alert is going to give us. We have the color danger, which is going to be red, and dismissible true, which means that the user has to click on X right here to dismiss it. If I chose to do duration, it would mean let's put this false. Make sure you put false if you use duration. Duration 5, let's do duration 3 seconds. 3,000 milliseconds, meaning 3 seconds. It means that if the alert pops up, it will disappear after 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. All right? Usually alerts, you want it to keep it as true and have the user click on X so they notice it and close it so they really notice the alert and it just doesn't disappear. But you can do that. All right, so we have the alert, but we have to make sure to connect the alert and the dropdown in the graph. So to connect all that data, we use this callback right here. So this callback right here, again, the callback decorator is very similar to the one right here. What we do is we take the input. We're going to take the input of the district chosen. This is the dropdown ID. We're going to take the value component, the districts, and then we're going to play around with information and spit out two outputs. The first output is always going to refer to the figure component of the graph, and the second output right here and right here is always going to refer to the children of the alert div. Not the alert component, but the alert div. Okay, remember that, it's important. So let's see what we do here. We're going to create this function. We're going to take the value of the input. You always have to take the value of the input and the states. And we're going to say if the length of the district, because district is a list. Always, this is always very helpful to print type districts, type of the value of the argument you have here, so you can see what it looks like. So this we know is a list. All right, so we're going to take the length of the list, and if it equals 0, it means no district was chosen. It means that the user probably X'd everything out and there's nothing chosen. So we say if nothing is chosen, return dash no update, because the first output is the graph, so we don't want to update the graph, just leave it as it is. But the second thing we're going to return inside the children of the div is the alert. All right, and the alert, as you remember, you can go all the way up. The alert object is this, is color red, and is this string. So that's why you see this. Please choose district from dropdown to avoid further disappointment for the user. So they'll click on this, and hopefully they'll understand they have to use another district. Pretty clear alert, so they should be able to understand. All right, so that's what we do if the length of the district is 0. Else, meaning if the length is anything but 0, if it's 1 or 2 or 3 or 10, then there's like 10 different districts chosen. We're going to return no update to the alert. This is the second output, so no update there. The div is going to remain invisible, but we're going to return the first argument is going to be, object is going to be a figure, and this is going to be the figure that we return. All right. This is very simple filtering of pandas data frame. I'm just returning all the districts that was chosen, filtering the data by the districts that were chosen by this list, and then grouping by year and district. And then I'm just creating the Plotly Express line chart using this information here. If you want to learn more about the Plotly Express line chart, just go into Plotly Express line and see all the keyword arguments of the parameters that they have. We're just using a fraction of them right here with y, x, and color. Okay, so we return the fig, and we have returned no update to the alert. So if I choose a drop down here, let's choose mite. Now I'm returning a new figure with 3 different districts, and their graffiti incidents per year, average graffiti incidents per year for each district. All right, so we saw how we did the alert and the dropdown. Now let's look how we do the modal. So go back up, and if you close it, open the modal back up again, because the modal, remember, is going to go right here inside the image card underneath the line break under the dropdown. So it's going to go right here, right? The add comment thing. So how do we do the modal? The modal, it looks like a lot, but it really is very simple. The first thing we're going to have inside the div of the modal, we're going to have a DBC button, and this is going to be the add comment button with open ID. Go all the way under the modal, underneath, and you'll see that we have also, inside the modal. Then you open the modal itself, and then we're going to have a children, a list of things inside of it. We're going to have the header all about Berlin, which you can see here. If I click on this, you'll see the header all about Berlin. And then we're going to have these 3 labels, name, email, and comment, and these 3 input fields, name, email, and text comment. So you'll see inside the modal body, we'll have a DBC form. You can do it with just DBC input and label, but it just looks a lot better when it's inside a form group. So this is just another form Bootstrap component. Just look in the documentation. So inside the form, we're opening the children. We're going to put the form group, and inside we're going to put 3 different form groups. We're going to put the name, the input type, the text. So this is allow the user to put text inside of this input right here. And a form group here as well. We're going to have an email and an email type. This is easier for the browser to understand that this is an email input. Easier for the browser to work. And the last group is going to be a text comment to put their comment in there. And then we close the last group. And under the last group, we're going to put a DBC button where we're going to have a submit. Inline truant means that everything, all these 4 things are going to be on one line, if possible, if the screen is wide enough. So now the button and all the 3 things are on one line, the submit button. Okay. And under the submit button, we close the body of the modal. And under the body, we're going to have a modal footer. And inside the footer, we're going to have a close button that looks like this. You see, this is the footer, this is the body, and this is the header. Okay. Important, we're going to have the ID of the modal is going to call ID to connect in the callback. Is open going to be false because it's going to be start the default. When you start the page, it's not going to be open, it's going to be closed. This, you can change the size of the modal. You have small, large, and extra large. Backdrop true means that if I click on a backdrop, it will close. See, there's nothing there. If you want to have backdrop false or static, it means that if I click, you won't be able to close the backdrop unless you hit close. And then you have scrollable. Scrollable true is good if you have a lot of text. So if you have like all information about Berlin and the country and everything right here instead of a form, there's going to be a lot of text. You can have scrollable true so you can scroll inside the modal. Centered, so it's in the center of the page right here as opposed to the top. I think by default it comes on top, so now you put it in the center. And then fade, meaning that it fades into the page. You see how it comes clear, like from top to bottom. This is fade. If you put fade false, it'll just appear there like of nowhere, thin air. All right, so now we have all these parameters about the modal. I think there's a few more parameters. Just read a little bit more about them if you want to study it more. Just go to Dash Bootstrap components, go to modal, and you'll see at the very bottom all the different components for the modal body, or they're just a regular DBC modal that you can use for your dashboard. But these are the most commonly used ones. So now all we have to do is connect the modal ID, which is modal, to the open button and the close button, right? Because you want it to open when we click open and close when you click close. And this we do as a last callback right here, which is very similar to the callback that we use for the popover right here. If you understood the popover, then this is exactly the same. We're taking the end clicks of the open button, and we're taking the end clicks of the close button, and the state, right, current state, the current state is false. And we're going to say, if nothing is clicked, right, if not N1 or N2, the first button or the close button, then return is open, which is right now false. So there's not going to be anything there. If N1 is clicked, then return the opposite of false, which is true. So if I click, let's make this smaller. If I click N1, the open button, then it opens. If I click N2, second time the callback is triggered, the is open is going to be true because this is open right now. If I click N2 close, it's going to be not is open, meaning it's going to be false. So this is the whole idea behind a modal. Again, a modal is used on multiple occasions. You probably use it every day to pay for stuff, to enter comments, and for many other things. So it's a very, very important Bootstrap component to know, as well as the alert, and of course the popover if you have some extra information you want the user to see. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned a lot from this tutorial. I want to thank my patrons for supporting me in creating these beautiful tutorials. And this is for everybody. Keep practicing, never give up, and always remember we're better together. So help each other out if you can. Thank you.